In 1991, a psychologist called Eric Anderson, he did a study with three groups of students from the Berlin Music Academy. They were kids that were violinists, and he had three groups of kids that were the outstanding performers, the very good performers, and the not so good performers. So the research was about performance, and this is one of the best research that has been done in the history about performance. So he got three groups of kids, and they started studying them, and what they wanted to find out is what made the difference between someone that was a really good performer, someone that was excellent at whatever they were doing, someone that will stand out from the crowd, and the rest. The outstanding performer kids, the group of outstanding performers, those were kids that were expected to become soloists. These were kids that were violinists, and the outstanding performers were kids that they thought that these kids they had like the DNA of music in their blood. So they were expected to grow up and become like superstars, like the pinnacle of music, you know. Then the very good performers, the other group that were very good, these were kids that were not as good, and they were expected to be not as good as the outstanding performers, but still good enough to play pretty much in any orchestra around the world. Okay, any of the top orchestras around the world. And then they had the group of the least, they call them not so good, or the least developed kids that were expected to become teachers. So what happens is they noticed that in these three groups there were a lot of similarities when they were growing up. They usually started playing the instrument, the violin, at the age around 8, and around 14 years old, right before 15, that's when they decided that they were gonna become musicians. So what happens is they had the similarities that, okay, they start at 8, right before 15 they decide that they're gonna become musicians. Throughout their life, or throughout their life up until they were 20, they usually have an average of 4 teachers, and most of them play in average 2 instruments. So the one thing that stood out from all their similarities, they say there is just one thing that was not, it was a very obvious difference between all three groups, and that was that by the time they reached 20 years old, the kids that were like super good and became to the outstanding performers group, those kids, by the time they were 20, they have already practiced 10,000 hours. Those kids that were the very good, not as good as the outstanding performers, those kids, by the time they got to 20, they had practiced for 8,000 hours, 2,000 hours less than the outstanding performers. And the third group that were the least good kids, let's say, those kids, by the time they turned 20, they had practiced 6,000 hours less than the outstanding performers. That means outstanding performers were 10,000, very good were 8,000, and least good were 4,000. So they say that with no exception at all, every single kid that had practiced for 10,000 hours by the time you're 20, he had become an outstanding performer. Of course, many of these kids, ever since they were young, ever since they were Oh, they were not kids, of course, by the time they turned 20, but when they started the study, they were kids, and a lot of them started with people thinking that they were gonna be super successful because they had like the DNA in their blood. They probably came from families that were musicians, but it turns out that it wasn't like that. There were kids that were supposed to be destined to be successful or very successful, and they weren't. They say the only thing that really made a difference, there is a lot of similarities between all three groups. The real difference, the one thing that separated them, was the amount of hours they have practiced. And this is something that I wanted to talk about, because this talks about the talent. A lot of times we think that we don't have the talent to perform a task. We think we don't have the talent to become something, that whatever we want to do, any goal. And the truth is that research has shown over and over and over that it doesn't really matter how much talent you think you have or how much talent you really have. In the end, practice is what's gonna make the difference between you and other people. I like to talk to the kids that I teach tennis. I like to give them the example of Roger Federer or Rafael Nadal, the number 1, number 2, or number 3 in the world. And sometimes if you see him hitting with a guy that is the 100 in the world, and you see him hitting the ball and they hit the ball exactly the same, you cannot really say that Roger or Nadal, they hit the ball harder. No, it's just they have the same power, they have the same speed. You know, there might be little differences, but basically it's the same. What makes the difference, why is it that most of the times, and there are gonna be times when Federer or Nadal, they're gonna beat badly a guy that is a 100 in the world, and you say, how is that possible if there is no so much difference in their game? Well, because the difference is up here. Physically there is not much difference, but mentally there is huge difference. And if you go to the records, you can see you're gonna find scores where Roger Federer and Djokovic and Nadal and other guys, they have played people that were not even in the top 100 in the world, were the 20, 30, or 40 in the world, and you will think that, oh, that's gonna be a pretty close match, and they beat the other guys badly. I mean, badly, 6-1, 6-love, and things like that. And say, how is that possible? Well, it's just the difference. You get to the point where the difference is not in the physique, it's up here, and the difference in the mind can be even bigger than the difference that you think the body can do, you know, the physique part of the game can do. So this is very important. This is something very important. This is something that pretty much it gives hope to every person out there. You have no excuse to think like, you know what, I cannot be this person, I cannot achieve this, I cannot achieve that. It's just a matter of taking the time and practicing, guys. It's just a matter of putting the effort, putting the time, putting all the hard work. Okay, I wanted to tell this story because I think it's a very interesting story. It's very clear. I hope it helps you. Okay, give me a like, subscribe to my channel, and just go out there, stay centered, be bold, be perseverant, and keep pushing, guys. Okay, I'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye.